Hey everyone, how's everyone doing? Woo! I'm Madison. For those of you who don't know me, I've been working as a web developer for 5 or 6 years now. I want to welcome everyone who's here today. Welcome everyone who's watching online as well. I'm so excited to be here. I feel like I was waiting for this event for weeks, so I'm super excited for today. I know we're all really excited, but let's get more excited right now. So when I say make some noise, everyone make some noise. Ready? Make some noise. That was amazing. I love your energy. I know it's 9 a.m. Thank you. Okay, let's take it up a notch. When I say make some noise, make some noise. Ready? Make some noise. Love it. Thank you so much. Okay. Let's see. Mark, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm feeling so good. Listen, the energy that you all are giving is going to make today so fantastic. Thank you for just being there and bringing all that positive energy. My name is Mark. I work on the Angular team at Google. And listen, friends, I know, but this is a web conference. This is about full stack web. And so we're here together to celebrate the web, to learn. There are some fantastic speakers here. There are some of the brightest minds in the industry that will be sharing with you, teaching. We're going to be learning. We're going to be growing together. Are y'all ready for a good time? That's what I'm talking about. All right, so Madison, I think we should find out more about our attendees.
Yeah, we want to find out who traveled the furthest to get here. So if you traveled more than 2 hours to get here, stand up and make some noise. Woo!
All right.
It's pretty good. Okay, what about if you traveled more than 5 hours to get here? Make some noise. 5 hours. Okay, what about if you traveled more than 10 hours to get here?
Okay.
Pretty good.
Man, 10 hours. That's a commitment. Is anybody here for more than, let's say, 15-hour travel?
Anyone? Oh, we got a hand back there?
We got 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5. Wow, Madison.
Oh, my goodness.
Amazing. Let's go. What about 20 hours?
20 hours. Anyone travel more than 20 hours to get here? Raise your hand. Make some noise.
What? All right, let's give them a round of applause.
Woo! Thank you so much for coming. We're so glad to have you.
All right, so we know about you folks, but I thought that if we were going to be your MCs today, you're going to see so much of us, maybe it'd be cool to get to know us a little bit. That's why you clap. I'm like, yeah, we want to know. Yeah. All right, okay, so I prepared some questions. Madison, I'm going to ask you a question. What is your favorite food?
In-N-Out Burger. Anyone love In-N-Out? Some people say it's overrated. I disagree.
I think it is rated, right? It's just...
Ouch! That hurt me. What is your favorite food, Mark?
It's just rated, to be honest with you. Okay, for people who don't know what In-N-Out is, it's a burger joint based in California. Because somebody said, what's In-N-Out? You know, you go outside and eat and you go back in? No. All right, my favorite food is actually French fries. I believe that French fries are the greatest food ever created. Somebody said, what, ice cream? You just trying to have a tummy ache. No, that sounds good. All right. Okay, Madison, how about this? What's your favorite place to travel?
I went to Japan for the first time by myself last year. I thought it was incredible. I had an amazing time. Yeah.
Like, what were some of the parts of Japan that you really enjoyed?
I loved all the temples in Kyoto. Has anyone ever been? Yeah, it was amazing. Beautiful. What is your favorite place to travel besides Salt Lake City?
Yeah, because I was here like 2 weeks ago. I can't get enough of Utah, evidently. I just keep coming back. Yeah, I can't. Like, yeah, keep coming back, Mark. Yeah, as much as you want. Come to my house and hang out. I will. Thank you. That's so great. I will totally do that. Yeah, that's right. All right, so my favorite place to travel is actually London. I love London. And let me tell you why. There's a good reason for this. All right, so anyone here, raise your hand if you've ever been to New York City. Now, have you ever taken the train in New York City? And did you ever get where you were trying to go the first time? No. One person's like, I did. I wrote the map. Okay, let me tell you what happened to me in New York. I went to New York, and then I tried to get on the subway, and I asked one of the workers, like, hey, can you tell me which train to go? She's like, yeah, the one over there. I'm like, which one? I literally don't know. And she's like, oh, the one over there. And she was getting mad at me. And I was like, bro, like, I don't know where to go. So how does this compare to London? In London, when you go into the tube, that's what they call the train. You go into the tube, there are two signs. You got an arrow going that way if you want these stops. There's an arrow going that way if you want these stops. So that made traveling so fun and so easy. So that's why London is one of my favorite cities to travel to. That's right. Mind the gap between the train. That's right.
Yeah, what gap?
Yeah.
What?
Oh, because so there's this like 8-foot gap between the train and the platform, and they have to remind you to like not fall into it. Like the doors open, like mind the gap, and you're like, what you thought? Oh, okay, I see it.
That sounds terrifying.
Somebody shoe down there. I see some like book bags. It's pretty intense. All right, Madison. Some skeletons. That's intense. Skeletons. All right. What's your favorite programming language?
Ooh, TypeScript. TypeScript
Okay.
fans out there? Woo!
Tell us why you like TypeScript so much.
Well, it was my first language, like my first love, and there's just something about your first love. You always love it. It got me into my career today. I owe everything to JavaScript. Wait, TypeScript. Oh! Okay.
That first love, like, you cheating? You cheating on me?
There's no one else but you, except for... What is your favorite language?
All right. I'm a little old. Okay. I'm older than I look. Somebody like, you look as old as you are. Okay, but listen. I started coding back in the late 90s or mid 90s. My first and most favorite language is actually QBasic. Yeah, QBasic. Let me tell you
What
how.
is that?
Man, Madison. So let me tell you how I learned QBasic or even fell in love with it. Anyone ever used like AOL back in the day? And do you remember you can go on AOL and you could actually download games that were made by the community? And that's like open source before open source was open source because you didn't get binaries. You just got the source code and you just run it. And I would read it as this teenager, not knowing exactly what I was reading, right? Because I was still learning how to code. But I would just read these games and I was just like, man, this is amazing. And then I wrote my first game ever was in QBasic when I was 16. And I made a slot machine game. And I just wanted to try, and I didn't understand like refresh buffers. Like, you know, you paint one frame in the buffer, and then you draw one on the screen, and then you flip. I didn't do that. I just like wrote the graphics over the other graphics, so it just looked like a kid like coloring over and over on top of the same picture. But I made it though, all right? And I made it. And QBasic is what really launched my career, and so that's why QBasic is one of my favorite programming languages of all time.
Love it. Should I check it out? Language to learn in 2024? Thoughts?
Look, QBasic is making a comeback. You know, it's not. It's not.
Okay, who is ready for the keynote? Okay, so who here is a self-taught developer? Make some noise. Woo! Okay, so like a lot of people here, I'm a self-taught developer. In college, I didn't really fit into the traditional classroom environment, and then I found web development courses online. And so many of those courses and lessons were taught by Ken Dodds. And it's no exaggeration to say those courses completely changed my life. I owe everything. I have an amazing career today, all from just taking these incredible courses online. Ken has been not only an incredible teacher, but he's also created this amazing community that I feel so proud to be a part of. So please welcome to the stage, Kent C. Dodds. Woo!
That was so nice, thank you. Okay, hello everybody. Let me just get plugged in here. Oh, we've got an adapter now, cool. And we are going to do sound, so here that goes. Wow, I'm so excited to be here on stage at Epic Web Conf Year 1. Thank you all so much for coming and trusting us. Yes, thank you, Mark. This is a dream come true. I've wanted to put on a conference for the web for a long time. I ran RemixConf 2 years in a row, and when I went back to doing full-time teaching, I was like, okay, I'm going to do a conference for Epic Web. And so I'm just so grateful to all of you for trusting me and our team for coming out here. Some of you traveled over 20 hours, which blows my mind. I really hope you're not disappointed. But I am so thrilled with the amazing people we have here and the speakers. This is awesome. I want to talk with you about what makes the web epic. That is not a period. That is my cursor, and it is moving away. Before we do that, though, whoops. Oh my gosh, there we go. We're going to wake up. Everybody please stand up. Yes, we're excited. We're going to get our bodies moving. Blood flow is important for your brain, and so we're going to get our blood flowing. I want you to put your arms out in front of you like this. I was so tempted to be like, all right, now let's all do a backflip, but no, we're not going to do that. It would be the worst if I like broke my neck on stage. So we're not going to do that. We're going to squat down, come back up. This is an air squat. That was just a practice. We're going to do 12 of these together. Ready? 1. You got to count out loud with me. 2. Yes. 3. I like that commitment. 4. 5. You're doing so great. 6. 7. We're over halfway. 8. 9. 10. Let's start over. 1. No, just kidding. And 12. All right, stretch up over your head as high as you can. And then even higher than that. And then stretch over to one side and over to the other. And then you can tuck your shirts back in and all that. Go ahead and sit down. Thank you. Yes. Get that blood flow. This morning, what, Jacob? One more time. All right, I went on a run this morning with the Sanity crew. They did a run thing this morning that got my blood flowing, but you all missed out. So let's first talk about what we're doing here. What am I trying to do by running a conference about my course? That's what some people are thinking. He made a course and now he's making a conference. Is the whole conference just going to be him teaching his course? I thought about that for 1 second. It was like, that's a terrible idea. No, what we're here about is the web. It's a celebration of the amazing progress that we've all made on the web over the decades that the web has been around. And some of you have been around for that entire time, and I'm just really impressed. And you're kind of old. Just kidding, John. I'm just joking. But really, the web has gone so many places, and while Epic Web is really focused on giving you a consistent experience for how we build web applications, specifically with the Epic Stack, and everything in the Epic Stack is pretty opinionated, and so you can jump on the Epic Stack and you'll probably be great, and you won't have to worry about analysis paralysis, all of that stuff. And so while I have like an opinionated way of building the web and teaching how to build for the web, the people that I have invited to join me on this stage later today, they don't all share those exact same opinions. But there's, like, if you drew a Venn diagram of the way that we build for the web, there's so much overlap. Like, one of the people who was just on this stage is on the Angular team. I don't use Angular. I did, and I loved it, but I use React now. But we have a lot of overlap on the stuff that we enjoy. I think it's kind of funny, actually, that we opened this conference by talking about QBasic. But that's the beautiful thing about this, is that there are just so many ways to build on the web. The web can take you so far. So that's what we're doing here. I want to give you a consistent experience of, like, this is a consistent way to build for the web. You're not going to hear opinions that are conflicting on this stage, even though we all have different ways of building for the web, because there's just so much room for all of us. So I want to start with a bit of a story of how I got into the web. I was programming as a, I had an end in mind. I wasn't programming for fun or anything. It was, I had a job to do. It was really repetitive, and I thought, you know what, I could probably write a program to do some of this repetitive stuff. Didn't enjoy it at all. And it wasn't until I discovered the web and JavaScript that it actually became a thing that I would do because I enjoyed doing it. I also, of course, you want to have a task you're trying to accomplish, but not always, right? Sometimes you're just doing it for fun. And so here's something I did. This was actually for a class assignment that I did when I was in school, and I worked on it with a friend, but it was kind of cool. Spendmycents.com doesn't, I took it down a while ago, but because it cost me money and stuff. But the idea was you have a gift card on Amazon for a certain amount of money and you're trying to spend it. You don't know what to spend it on, so you type in the amount that gift card is for, and it'll tell you stuff on Amazon that's for that exact price. I actually think that's kind of a cool idea, right? But yeah, it doesn't work anymore if you go to spendmycents.com. I am not responsible for whatever you see. And then there's this, infinite WPM. This is an iframe. So you could put in some code or anything that you like, and then you could look like you're a hacker. Look at this. Oh no, I exited full screen. And this was just a fun thing. This is actually an AngularJS project, fun fact. So we are running AngularJS before we run React on this project, or in this conference. but yeah, it was just a fun little thing. But here's the thing about these fun little things, is that, there we go, and many others that I built in my early days and even in my current days as a web developer, they're really bad. Like, I can only imagine the Ryan roast that I would get on some of these apps. And like, I don't want Sandrina to go to any of these apps for the accessibility problems that I'm sure she would find. There were lots of problems with these apps. But I loved it anyway. It was awesome. And I loved it for a couple of reasons. There were a couple things that made this more special than the stuff that I was doing before the web. I didn't need any permission from anybody to put this up on the internet. Nobody had to approve my app. I love that. They wouldn't have done it if they could. Those still, like, that was an iframe into an app that's like a decade old. So it still runs. If I cared to still run spendmycents.com, all of that stuff would still run. The web didn't break my app. And I had instant distribution, like I didn't have before. With the programming that I was doing before, I'd be like, hey, Mom, look at this jar file that I made. Like, she's not going to do anything with that. And I figured out some way to make an exe, but like, Mom, don't open random exes that you download from the internet. But with the web, it's just a URL. Like, Mom, look at this URL. And she's like, yeah, that's great. I have no idea what you're talking about, but yeah, wonderful. So I loved that. That's a really special thing about the web, is that we have those. Tim Berners-Lee said, if I had to pick one thing that was crucial to the design of the web, it would be universality. That's universality in the devices that it can run on. It runs everywhere. The access that people have should be accessible by everybody. If you don't know who Tim Berners-Lee is, he's a web developer. He's actually the first web developer. He was the developer of the web, inventor of the web. And this was his ideas of what the web should be is a big part of what the web is now and the ideas of the web in general, even today. He's still a very active member of the web community, which is super cool. So first I want to talk about the web being open. There's no central authority. Nobody can say, nope, you can't have that app on the web. Now, I know some of you are thinking there are some exceptions to this, of course, like you could have the platform like deplatform you or whatever. But in general, there's no one authority that can say, nope, you can't be on there. You're not allowed. I love that. I think that's an awesome part of the web. You can just put it up on a server. It's accessible over HTTP. The web doesn't break our stuff. My old stuff still works. In fact, the entire ethos of the web is don't break the web. When I was on the TC39 representing PayPal, the standards body that's responsible for standardizing ECMAScript, which is a specification for JavaScript, I heard this over and over again. I'm sure the W3C is the same way. It's very important that we don't break the web. I know some of you are thinking, oh yeah, well, the web broke me when they said no more cookies in such and such place, whatever. That's a security change, you know, like you call that a bug fix. Sometimes you depend on bug fixes or depend on bugs and the bugs gets fixed and it broke you. Yes, that does happen everywhere. But the idea is we don't want to break the web. That app that you built in 1995 when JavaScript was first invented, that should still run. That's the core idea. And even amazing sites like this from back in 1999.
Welcome to Zambocom. This is Zambocom. Welcome.
This is how I hypnotize the entire audience.
This is Zambocom.
This is
Welcome
the most
to
hilarious
Zambocom.
thing. But this is an iframe. This is not a video I recorded back in the 90s. This is an iframe into the 90s. I think that's cool. It's something that he was about to say, your only limit is yourself, which is inspiring. We're getting inspired by the 90s, some random person. But you can commit to the web because the web will commit to you. And I think that is great. The web is everywhere. It's in URLs, so you can distribute it wherever you want to go. It's in everything, everywhere. So for example, it's on your desktop. I know a lot of people like to joke about, like, I got Chrome running like 30 times on my desktop. But it is. It's amazing that we have that. I hope there's nothing in here that... I took this screenshot really quickly. I think Matt is actually in here. And it's also in your Discord. And ScriptKit. How many of you are using ScriptKit? This thing rocks. If you aren't using ScriptKit, go look up ScriptKit. I use JavaScript to automate so many things on my computer, which is super cool. And of course, VS Code. How many of you are using VS Code? Yeah. Yeah, VS Code rocks. I know WebStorm is great, NeoVim, I don't know. But yeah, cool. It's all written with web platform technologies. That is so cool. And I'm sure, like, I didn't spend a lot of time to really look into this, but you cannot convince me that it's not in TVs, like, at least in the apps. That's totally running in TVs. It's probably running in refrigerators and toasters. I was about to ask if anybody owns that toaster, but you keep your shame to yourself. It's also running in space. Those are web components. I'm not super into web components, but they are, and that's running Chromium. Web technologies in space on the Dragon capsule. That is cool. The web is everywhere. It's also responsible for these pictures that we're getting from the James Webb Telescope. Web technologies, they're all over. The web is everywhere. The web is also really capable. And I've got a couple of cool demos. This is the cool part where I get to demo things other people have built. And you get to be impressed because I'm demoing it. You can do tons of stuff with the web. Uh-oh. Oh, yeah, spoiler alert. That's audio coming from the next slide. So yeah, there's my website. Like, that's cool. We all have, cool stuff on the web. Don't forget to grab your Cody stickers on your way out. And on this, if you put your Cody sticker so that he's standing up in a tuck, he's upside down. He's supposed to be doing a backflip. So make sure you get your Cody sticker the right orientation. These slides are also built with the web. So we could go through the whole slide deck right here. This is an iframe into itself, which is just amazing. And then some of you have seen this before. This has got to be one of the coolest portfolio sites ever. Whoa! So like, oh, let's go look at his projects. 3JS journey. Whoa, interesting. Like, can you believe this? This is the coolest thing. All running on the web. That's interesting. How many of you have played Athena Crisis? This is a game 100% web technology, not even WebGL stuff. So I'm going to grab this guy. I'm going to attack this guy. Kablooey. Oh, kablooey back. Dang it. This is awesome. Not even WebGL stuff. I am actually amazed at what Christoph has done with that. And then this, like, you see demos like this all the time. Isn't that the coolest thing? And like, you can change some of the parameters and stuff. Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan. And like this. Oh, sorry. This. I mean, it's not all just like fun and games. It's also like actual, real productive stuff that is built on the web. Not because like the developers only care about JavaScript. I'm sure, in fact, some of them wish they could use other technologies to build their apps. But just so many things about the web make it a really great platform for building these types of experiences. Oh yeah, and don't forget that you can run Node natively in the browser with web containers with what StackBlitz is doing. Like, holy smokes. I mean, the web is pretty capable. Oh, and who wants to run Linux in the browser? An operating system, an entire freaking operating system. So yeah, the web is capable. There are certainly things that the web cannot do. And we are on a mission to make it do more. And I think that is really cool. And last thing, the web is all of you. I know this is the corny part, so like feel free to, but I'm serious. The web is the melting pot of ideas because everybody's got to come here at some point. Whatever you're building, almost anything in the software world is going to touch the web at some point. And so even if you're like, I like Ruby and that's all I want to do, you got to touch the web. Well, most Ruby developers are building web apps. Or you're like in Python and that's what you want to do. You're going to be in the web eventually. So we're bringing all sorts of different ideas of how to build applications into the web platform. That's why it's so big, because eventually everybody lands here, and we have so many different ideas how to build it. And that's super cool. I don't think that the web would be nearly what it is today if we didn't have the input from all of these other communities having to come in and contribute in some way. So this is just the pictures of folks who submitted their pictures for your badge. So if you're not in here, it's not because I don't like you. It's just because you didn't submit your picture. But all of you people here and the people watching online, I just want you to know that I think that you are awesome. And I'm so grateful to you for coming to this conference, for bringing your positive energy into the web and helping us build one of the coolest platforms for reaching the greatest audience that I can imagine. I don't know if we've gone all the way through, so I want to wait to make sure everybody gets... There we go. Awesome. So yeah, sure, the web has problems. I'm the first to admit it. There are things I really think, well, that was a bad decision. Import specifier from module. No, import module from specifier. Yeah. Anyway, there are certainly problems with the web. But we can fix those things. The web has undergone so many transformations over the years. You could not run Linux in the browser in 1995. That was just not a thing. But now you can. Do you want to? Nah, I don't know. But like, it's really wild experiments like that that pushes it to the next level. And then you start having some really interesting things that you can, and user experiences that you can deliver to your users. And so I want you to fix those things. Make the web better. That's it, everybody. Thank you. Your Epic Web Devs.
All right, do me a favor, make a lot of noise. I need so much noise that it's uncomfortable. I need somebody to complain that you're being too loud. Woo! That's what I'm talking about. Yes, that's what we need. Listen, Kent said something that I don't agree with. He said that the web has its problems. We ain't got no problems. That's right. Denial is the way forward. No, I love the web. I've been working on the web for a very long time. And Kent was like, well, you couldn't run Linux in 1995 in a browser. You couldn't even run a website in a browser half the time in 95. Like, nothing was working. But it's amazing the things that you can do. When I think about all these fantastic things that you can do, it always blows my mind. Matt, so let me ask you a question, because you said that you've been working on TypeScript and you joined the web. What made you want to do this? How did you get into this career?
One of the things that made me want to do it is what Ken said, like, it's so permissionless. So I was struggling in college, and I could just go online. Anyone can take an online coding course, right? They're open for anyone. You can build whatever you want. You can get good and just build anything. And that is really magical to me. That was super inspiring when Ken said that. Also, I'm a little sore from those squats. I didn't realize it was leg day.
Yeah, I was out of breath. I'm not going to lie to you. When he said start over, I almost walked out. I was like, I'm not doing another round. Like,
Did you do all 12? I didn't see you do all 12.
I didn't. No, I didn't. I did 4.5. I was moving my arms up and down because I'm tall, so it looked like I was squatting, but that wasn't happening.
Yeah, I saw your arms move. I don't know about it. What about you, though, Mark? What made you get into it?
Oh, you know what? I didn't even know I wanted to be a web developer. Because when I started off, I wanted to be a game developer because I just really love the idea of creating things. So when I started off playing video games, everybody looked the same in games. So I, as a kid, was like, I want to make games where there are all kinds of characters. So I had this whole path set up for me where I was going to go to college. I was going to learn like C++ and all this stuff. I was going to go to Japan, and I was going to make games. I was going to change the world, right? That was my mindset. And then I was like, oh, I do not like making games. Okay. I made a couple, and I didn't get sleep, and I was like, "Ooh, I do not like this." And then, like Kent said about the when you have to share a jar file, like that's weird, right? Like I couldn't show anybody anything that I made, and I remember taking my laptop and like, "Hey, Dad, check this out." And I'm like, "Okay, wait, hold on, let me restart the server." Okay, Java C, then Java, right, and do all this stuff. So when the web came out, I actually hedged my bets on the web. Because back in 2011, I was working as a Java developer at a healthcare company. I'm writing Java beans, doing enterprise, moving really slow. And then the frameworks started to come out. Angular, Backbone, Knockout. And I was like, oh, one of these is going to change the world. And I really did believe that. And then I bet on Angular. And I was right, kind of, right? I was right. And so, and that's how I got into the web. That's how it all started. But speaking of the web, our next presenter knows a thing or two about the web. She is one of those people that when she talks about the new things that are happening and all the changes, that it just makes you step back and be like, how do you know so much? You ever meet those people? Like, how do you know all of that? How do you sleep or are you always learning? But I mean, she's a fantastic engineer, a prolific creator, and one of the smartest people I have ever met. I am honored, completely honored to call her a colleague at Google. So here's what I need from you. I need you to feel that same honor, that same excitement. I need you to make so much noise for the amazing Yuna Kravis.
Wow, thank you for that intro. That was very, very kind of you. I'm looking in this room and I'm like, y'all are way smarter than me, so I don't know. Hopefully I have something that I can teach you. All right, one of these chords is the right one. See, this is where it all starts. Who here loves the web? Love that. Now, who here loves CSS? I love that because that's more than I'm expecting. Because I always feel like CSS and HTML are the underdogs of web technologies. When you ask people, what's your favorite programming language, no one ever says CSS or HTML, except for maybe Adam over there. So I love to be on the stage talking to especially full stack developers, people who are really focused on building apps about CSS. And to get us hyped for this, I made a little trailer for this talk.
Oh, let's go.
Let's see, do I have some sound here? I'm plugged in. There we go.
And the masters of the universe. I am Adam,
developer,
and defender of the secrets of
my code base,
this is
my app,
my fearless friend. Fabulous secret powers were revealed to me the day I held aloft my magic
CSS.
stick and said, by the power of
the platform. My app
became the mighty battle,
My app.
and I became He-Man, the most powerful
developer
in the universe.
So I think I need to work on my voiceover career, but I hope you're all hyped. And one of those reasons is because CSS itself is getting way more powerful and much more declarative. So I'm excited to talk about this. And in my opinion, I think it's really important to learn about and to keep up with, because in today's web development environment, I think the best way to level up your developer skill set is to take advantage of modern UI capabilities. So I hope that by the end of this talk, you feel the same. And there's so much to talk about, but really a lot of the time I get asked, like, why do I even need that? Can't I just, build stuff in JavaScript? Yes, I guess, in theory, but you get all these benefits when you learn how to leverage these web platform features. And the first is just separating your logic from your styling. Why are we constantly creating these styling components in the same place that we're creating our application logic? DOM removal and addition and any user interaction from submission, that makes sense to be in the scripting, but does it make sense to style a background in the same place? So the second is to reduce third-party dependencies. There's a lot of them out there that we just like to npm install and use. And a lot of these features actually help to eliminate those because they provide a lot of these features natively. And then that means that you can reduce maintenance costs. If you are building them yourself, if you have a design system, you don't have to actually continue to maintain all that code and as the complexity grows, which means that the last things are just making your life easier. That's the main thing. Another big benefit is making it easier to build accessible components with a lot of these built-in features. So really, it's important to care about CSS and UI and all the new HTML stuff. So as I mentioned, there's lots to cover, but today I'm going to focus on 3 features, and those are scroll-driven animations, the popover API, and anchor positioning, because I think those have some of the biggest bang for your buck and are also on the cutting edge of like what's coming to the platform. If we have time, we'll talk about styling dropdowns like with select, but I don't think we'll have time, so we'll see. Let's start with interactions. The first is scroll-driven animations. Who's heard about this API? Okay, we got a couple of hands here. With this, we get a lot of really cool new features that give us native browser-handled scroll animations. So you can create things like this, which is a really cool just way to kind of scroll through a list, or an option of picking a credit card. You can do stuff like this where you have text kind of pop in or images kind of animate in. And the way to do this is pretty straightforward. All we have to do is first set up a keyframe like we would with any CSS animation. This is called fly-in. All we're doing is updating the transform, so it's going from -100 pixels to 0 pixels, and the opacity from 0 to 1, and that's this sort of block quote right here that's animating in. And then on the block quotes, we're just setting up this animation. And the timeline here is the big change where we say animation timeline view. So we're looking at the scroller here as the view, or the viewport in this instance. I'm also giving this an animation range, so it's going from 0 to 50% of that scroller. Normally I would probably do like, less than that, like 25% towards the bottom, but just to show this kind of animating over time. That's all the code you need. You don't have to have third-party dependencies. You don't have to write any scripts. You don't have to do any query selection. You can do this directly in CSS in a couple lines of code. And it's really ripe for progressive enhancement. Here's another example, pretty much doing the same thing where we're just animating opacity and scale. And you get these images that kind of nicely animate in from the bottom as a nice little progressive enhancement, where the user experience, if scroll-driven animations is not supported, would just be the images popping in as they would normally without the animation. So I think that this is a great feature to progressively enhance. I don't think this is necessarily one you want to have a polyfill for if you're doing something like those cases where it's just like a nice little scrolly telling feature, but progressive enhancement's awesome on the web. And as we heard this morning, the web doesn't break your stuff, which is also why it's so hard sometimes working in standards, because you can't change stuff from the past. Another cool thing you can do is this effect where you get this like back to top button they're animating in. And I remember using a library for this on one of my old websites. And now you no longer need to do this. You can just do this in a couple lines of code. Another thing that you might want to check for is support of these features. So you can use as supports and then check for animation timeline. And if the browser supports animation timeline scroll, then you can apply all these styles. And in this instance, because I'm animating display, which is now something you can do too, you can animate from display none to display block on a timeline. I'm creating a new scroller. I'm calling this scroll timeline the root scroller on the HTML. So I'm not making a weird like cyclical dependency by not including where the scroller is actually starting. So then I'm just calling this animation timeline on the scroll timeline that I named here on HTML. And you have like this button popping in. It's not there. See, there's nothing to click on. It's display none until it hits this animation range of 20% of this scroll. And then from 20% to 30%, it appears, it fades in. And then we have this scroll back to top button. So that's just one more thing that you can do with anchor links, with CSS, natively now, no added scripting, which I think is pretty cool. Look, on no JavaScript or TypeScript, whatever you want to use. So another really cool, like kind of fun, hacky thing you can do also with scroll-driven animations is overflow or scroll detection. Who's ever had to build one of these where you detect overflow? Yeah, because a lot of the time, if you have some kind of indicator icon or some additional styling for an overflow, you need to do this. But a cool thing you can do is basically set a Boolean value. In this case, we're using a variable called canScroll. And then if there is a scroll, then this keyframe detect scroll will activate. Because if you have an element without a scroller, you don't actually have the scroll timeline present, so you won't get this value. So either declaring it or setting a value like 1, and then you can use that value in styling. So I pulled this all from a great blog post from Bramus Van Dam. There's the link to it. And this is one of the demos in that blog post where it shows that you have these arrows that appear if there's a scroller. And it's also dynamic, where this one's content editable, so I could add some content here, and then when I have enough content, the arrows appear. So this is all done without any scripting. This is all done by the use of these custom properties that we're instantiating here if there is a scroller. We're looking for the scroll timeline, and then here we're calling these variables where we have one value, which is the value, and then a default value, and then a fallback value, where if there is scroll, then this line would be valid. You'd have visible. If there isn't, then it's an invalid line. It's ignored. It's a variable that doesn't exist yet. It's undefined. So then you wouldn't have these arrows visible. It would be hidden. So you can do a lot of these like neat tricks now with some of these capabilities in CSS, which I think are cool. And you can also do things like this, which is sort of like a scrollytelling experience where you have these cards stacking and then staying in place until you're ready to exit that experience and move on to the rest of the page. Also, as you scroll back, it reverses the timeline too. Another cool example is this kind of header UI that we see. And this can be done with just a couple lines of code where you have your starting and your ending state and you're applying these styles on this scroll timeline given whatever range you want to apply them on. So if you think this stuff is cool, definitely check out scrolldrivenanimations.style. This is a site that's full of a ton of great resources, a ton of demos, and more information about this API. But I think this is like one of those features that really changes how we design for these scroll-based experiences. So I think it's important to know about. Who knows about SDA now?
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone should be raising your hand.
We do. We know so much.
Yeah. Another cool thing about this API is the performance benefits that you get from it. If you're animating properties like opacities and transforms that work off the main thread, you actually get some nice, really clear performance benefits on scroll. So this is a demo done by one of the folks on our team, Yuriko, who works with partners, and she explored the way that you would do this right now with scroll observers and just classic JavaScript mechanism for doing these kinds of scroll animations, which have historically been really non-performant. They've been janky, and that's why people say don't do this kind of effect. But now, if you're doing it with the native browser features, you don't have to worry about that if you're animating the properties that work off the main thread. And we've already seen some pretty big changes from people who have implemented these features. This is from Andy of Tokopedia, who used scroll-driven animations, and they said they were able to reduce 80% of their lines of code compared to using the conventional JavaScript scroll events that they'd used before. And this was to create like a little navigation bar that popped in for one of the product pages. And the average CPU usage reduced from 50% to 2% while scrolling. So whoever says CSS and HTML can't affect performance, like this is huge. And there's a lot of these features that do things like this, even in small ways. This is a big way. So definitely leverage the power of the native platform where you can. So now I want to talk about UI components, which can be a pain to implement sometimes. Who here has had to build like layered UIs, like popovers, menus? Yeah, almost everyone. And who here enjoyed it? There's one person, I don't believe you. So I'm really excited to talk about the Popover API with you all, which is one of those features that really makes it a lot easier to do a lot of these effects that you need for these layered APIs. And a really exciting thing is that next week, this is going to be stable across all browsers because Firefox 125 is landing on April 16th. That's the current date that is set for that to go stable, which means that it will be in baseline, which is so exciting because this is such a key feature. And now we have popovers all over the web. No, I joke. This is everywhere. Like these are everywhere. These are in menus, tooltips, select pickers, like all over the web platform because it's how we interact with things on the web. So a lot of this comes just from Popover. You get all of these benefits. One of them is promotion to the top layer, which is a separate layer that sits above the rest of the page. It is a sibling to the rest of your body content. So you, for the DOM, your DOM content, so you don't have to worry about managing z-index anymore. You don't have to worry about if you have z-index 99999, will that win? Now you can promote things to the top layer where it's on a whole separate layer from everything else. There's also light dismiss functionality, which is optional if you're doing an auto popover. You get that behavior where you can click away or outside the bounds of that popover to close it and then return focus. So you don't have to do all the click handlers and manually build all of that. There's also this default focus management. So if you tab into a popover, the next tab stop will be within the popover, and keyboard accessibility that's built in. So hitting the escape key or double toggling will close the popover and return focus. And then finally, component binding. So you don't have to worry about ARIA Live and all the different regions when you open the popover. That is built into the browser. And it's all done with one single attribute. Yet literally one HTML attribute does all of this stuff that if you have tried, yeah, clap for popover, because that's it. Bless. If you've tried to build these features, you know how hard it is. And when I say one attribute, I really mean that's pretty much it. So to build a popover, you can create an element, and you can give it any type of role. It could be nav, it could be div, whatever you want. Give it a popover attribute. You need to give this an ID to be able to trigger it. So say this is my popover, and then a button to open the popover with a popover target. So now we're connecting this button to the popover itself. So this is an example of just a basic popover where I can click in, I can tab in, I can double toggle this to close, I can hit escape to close too, and all of that is built in with just this line, these lines of code. I'm telling you, it's beautiful. And if you want to have more control, you could do this manual popover. So in this case, if I click away, it doesn't close. If I hit escape, it doesn't close. But double toggling the popover will close it. And hitting this button, which I have set a popover target action on to hide, will close it. I'm also connecting that to the popover with the popover target. So just a couple more lines of code, you could have a lot of this functionality and control with this feature set. You've probably already been using popovers too, because GitHub is using popovers in production on their homepage, in their PR review. Keith Circle is on the GitHub team. He's been heavily involved in the development of popover and bringing it to the web platform, so shout out to Keith. And what they do is they ship this polyfill. I do think this is a good use case for shipping a polyfill for unsupported browsers, which Keith actually helped a lot to get this out too. It is the Oddbird polyfill. You can install it, import it. There's a CDN link. You can use it here. So here's more information about it if you are interested in popover with the polyfill. So to animate popovers, there are a flurry of new features, and unfortunately these aren't as well supported yet. Oh gosh, Photoshop is updating. Who here is in Adobe? So what's really cool about this is that it lets you do effects like this where you're animating in and out. So this is kind of coming in from the bottom and out through the top, and you could have these different popovers. As I click on one, the others close. So you can see how these sort of stack, and these animations can be, at least for now, used as a progressive enhancement until we get more browser support there. So to create this, there's a couple funky things that you got to do. I like to break this out by the before open state, the open state, and the exit state. So for the before open state, we have this new primitive called starting style. And because we're animating things from display none to display block or grid or whatever, as they appear on the page, we have to teach the browser what it means to style it before it exists. And so that's why we have starting style. And here we're saying start with this transform at 20 pixels, so it's sort of south a little bit. And then as it exits, it's going to be at negative 50 pixels, so it goes up. And then we're also animating this opacity. So we have the settings popover. We're styling this popover open state with the starting style of the popover open state for the before open. Then we're styling that popover open state with the actual, like when it is open, this is the resting state. And then we're styling the default of settings popover with the exit state as it leaves to the negative 50 pixels. And this is on the element itself. So that is the default exit state before we're opening it. And there's one more key property here called allow discrete. This is a feature that enables us to animate display and to animate previously unanimated, unanimatable discrete properties that initially would just flip on in the first frame. Now they're animating with this animation at 50%. So that's another thing to kind of turn on. You could honestly just like copy and paste these animations because they can be a little complex. I think once you kind of get the hang of it, it makes sense. So anchor positioning is another really cool feature that has been close to my heart, and I'm very, very excited to see land. Have you all ever tried to build something that's anchored to another element? Especially, yeah, I'm seeing a lot of nodding. And how fun was that? So fun. So we're going to make it actually fun, because I've been playing with this API, and it's really fun to use. It is mostly fully implemented in Canary right now, and hopefully will be landing soon. So to create anchors, there's a couple ways to do it. The first is the implicit anchor in HTML. So similarly to how we would create popovers, you can create an anchor. So first, say the anchoring, the anchored element is the popover. So that's the thing that, like the tooltip that we're anchoring to something else. We would have this anchor property with this anchor attribute with the name of the ID of the thing that we're anchoring it to. So that's really all you have to do here. You have to give an ID to the thing that we're using as the anchor, and then connect it to the thing that we're anchoring to it with its ID. So those two things for implicit anchors. And now that means we could do things like this, where instead of appearing in the middle like a dialog or some other non-connected element, it's actually connected to the button that we're pressing as an anchor. And then we can use the properties of that anchor to position it with absolute positioning. So we can position it bottom right, and that's what I'm doing in this, where we have this anchor being positioned. The bottom of that popover is being positioned at the top of the anchor, at the top of the button, plus we have a little spacer here for the arrow of 1 rem, and then the right of the anchor is being positioned at the right of the button. So we can use the values of that anchor to position things in this absolutely positioned layout mechanism. So you can also have a different way to set this up, which is anchor name, where with this button, we have this popover target equals menu, and that's going to open up this menu. And so we give that an anchor name of menu. Now we can use position anchor in CSS, so you don't have to do this in HTML, to call that anchor name and then apply those styles. So now when we're using the anchor function, we can set that up with the anchor name and then the position value that we want to pull in. So anchor name menu left, anchor name menu bottom for the positioning of this. And you can have multiple anchors. So in this case, we have a submenu now. So if I click this open, there's a submenu where I have this submenu anchored to one of the list items in that menu. And we're just doing this again with calling the submenu, positioning it, and giving it this initial style. But if I want to adjust this, say I want to give it some responsive design, you can do that with position try. So I love anchor. So with position try, I can set up the second position. So say that's on the bottom. Now I'm reapplying some margin, the left and top position, and then when I resize it, it knows when it hit the edge of its viewport, and it can just shift. And and so what you do there is you set up the styles, you set up the position try, and then you set up the position try options, where this is the option I'm going to try if the other stuff doesn't fit. And it feels really magical because no script is required. You don't have to do resize observers. You don't have to do any kind of additional handlers. It's all done in the browser. So you can do stuff like this where you have your initial position, and then you set up like position try right. I'm switching it position try bottom, and then your position try options. And there's another feature called position try order, where you can actually tell the browser how you want it to order those things. So you could do most width, most height, most block size, most inline size. Those are the options. Pretty cool. And you can have multiple anchors too, so you could anchor to multiple things in the UI. So in this case, I have first anchor on the top left, next anchor on the bottom right, and I'm calling both of them to position the top left with this first anchor and the bottom right with the second anchor, where I'm saying anchor to. And that's totally doable, and it's responsive, it's customizable, it's dynamic, it's just created with a couple lines of CSS. Another cool layout it gets cooler, my friends. Another cool layout mechanism is inset area, which lands with anchor positioning. And so this is a way to just very declaratively, explicitly say, I want my inset area position to be bottom or right or top left. And if you want it to span multiple areas, you could do top span left. So you start at the top, and then you span to the left. Or if you want top span right. And this is another way to very explicitly say how you want things to be positioned. You can also use logical properties if you want, or if you want to use properties that are just directional, that works too. That's often the case that you want with things like menus. So this new feature just makes it so much more explicit in how you're positioning things, just a little bit easier to read. I think it's a nice addition to anchor positioning. But it doesn't end there, my friends. There's more. What? And that is these position try keywords. So you don't actually have to create all of the options and permutations yourself. You can use these keywords of flip inline or flip block and flip inline. So now what we can do is have something like this, where all we're saying is we're positioning this at the bottom of that anchored element, at the top of the anchor. Then we're going to use this new keyword called anchor center, which you can use for justification and alignment. And then we're setting the position try options to flip block. So if we resize this now, I didn't even have to specify what the second position was. The browser knows to flip this in the block direction. And you could even write this in 2 lines of code if you wanted to use inset area top, and then position try options flip block. And there you have a fully functioning tooltip. We got a pop over here with these fallback options for positioning. So it's really cool. Like, we see these all over the web. Here's more of He-Man. And this will automatically just swap directions with that one keyword as I scroll, and it doesn't fit on the screen anymore. So I think that this is a very, very powerful API. And even more powerful when you combine it with other APIs. So you can combine things like popover with anchor positioning and CSS trigonometric functions to create these cool effects, and you can use translates, and if you know geometry, you can start to really think outside the box and how things animate, so it's not so linear and boxy and more organic. And we can have this exist on the web platform and kind of flutter out into these positions with some animation, not duration, where it's starting later. I forgot the word. I don't know how to speak. Delay, animation delay. And then you can have this exist in icons. So this is like a Pinterest-inspired menu using anchoring, trigonometric functions, and popover. And this is the web I want to see. More creative styles, like native applications have this. Why can't we have this on the web? Well, we can, my friends. One important note is that popover has no default semantic role, but you can give it semantics. So it has a lot of built-in accessibility in terms of interaction with the browser, but not in what the actual role or meaning of that element is. So you can say it's a menu or a tooltip. If it's a dialog element, or you should use dialog. If the dialog will inert the rest of the page, so you can't actually interact with the rest of the page while the dialog is open. So that's also a nuance that you might want to have with dialog. And then for selection, the select element, which is getting a ton of upgrades. We're making it customizable. I don't think I'll have time to talk about it too much, but come find me and I will blabber on, trust me. But there's also additional updates for popovers and dialogs, one of those being invoke target. And invoke target gives you the ability to create these invokers in HTML to open those elements declaratively, like with popover, where I showed you how all you need is to create this popover target, and then you hook it up to an ID. Well, with dialog right now, it still requires JavaScript to open a modal dialog, so you have to have a separate file and open it in a different place. With invoke target, which is currently available in all the tech previews and in Canary, in all the modern browsers, you can try this out. With invoke target, you can declaratively open it. So we're making the behavior a little bit more similar so that you choose the right semantics for the right goal. There's also interest target, which lets you hover over things like in Wikipedia, those links, and show interest, whether it's a focus or a hover, to then open the tooltips, which is everywhere. It's in Twitter, it's in GitHub, it's Wikipedia, it's all over the web, and really hard to create in an accessible way. It's really hard to build that. So we've been working with a lot of accessibility experts in these open source working groups and community groups to get this right. And then for popover, for anchoring, we're getting things like tethering. Oh, my slides are gone. Well, I'll keep talking. So for anchoring, we're getting things like tethering to be able to style those arrows. And then also, instead of swapping positions, being able to slide something to keep it in the viewport, which is something that I've had to implement before, and it was not fun. So I think that we are almost at time anyway. Maybe they're calling me off the stage. That's what's happening. So I just want to say thank you so much for your time. I hope that I've inspired some of you to check out these new features and to love CSS and to say that it's your favorite programming language next time you're asked, MCs. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much.
Okay. I love that energy. Listen, I wanted to hear more from her all day. I could listen to Yuna. Okay, so this was what I like to call a trust building moment. Because what did I tell y'all? I said she was smart. And I said she knew a ton of stuff. And look how y'all were just locked in the whole time. I saw brains melting out of ears as she was talking about some of those features. So let me tell you something else. Y'all like giveaways? That does not sound like people who like giveaways to me.
You guys like giveaways?
Yeah, all right. Any tech deck nerds in here? Anybody remember being a tech deck nerd with the little key, the little, Yeah, all right, we got something for you. A one wheel. If you want to win this here, the first person to yell out the answer, what was the name? I want the actual name of the animation technique that she opened with. Come on, come get it.
Woo! Woo! Good job.
Don't be jealous. Give them a round of applause. Yeah.
Nice. All right, our next speaker is a software developer, community builder, and she's also just an incredible human being. I'm really excited for this talk. Please welcome Michelle Bakels.
Oh, got a bit of a different setup. Okay, so for the first time ever, I'm trying a PowerPoint in Canva, so let's see how this goes. Also, the name of my talk is a little emo. I'm forever an emo kid, so.
It's all right. Never change.
All right, so here we go. So about 4 years ago, I was sitting in my cardiologist's office just thinking like, wow, I didn't think I would have a cardiologist for like 30 more years. And after wearing a heart monitor for a few weeks, they were able to see that I was constantly experiencing abnormal heart rates. So they diagnosed me with inappropriate sinus tachycardia, aka your heart rate is running wild and we have no idea why. They say there's really nothing that they can do for me long term, so to just figure out what's triggering my heart rate and avoid that thing. Okay, yeah, exactly, all right. So the thing is at this point, everything was triggering my heart to race, doing the dishes, getting the mail, cleaning the house. But it wasn't always like this, and it wasn't ever as bad as when I would go into work meetings. And this is really where it all started. So I was working for an amazing company on a project that I loved with incredible developers, but we were exposed to some pretty toxic communication and bureaucracy that prevented any kind of like accountability or resolution. And after over a year of this, I began to notice my heart was kind of hurt, like my chest was hurting, followed by this weird cough. And I was like, that's suspicious. And so first, it started happening when I would go into Scrum ceremonies, like especially the retrospective. Yeah. So then it just like slowly started building to the point where it was happening during any activity at all. That's leading to the cardiologist. So being honest with myself, avoiding the thing that was causing my heart to race meant possibly leaving my team and maybe my job, and eventually I did both. I went to another company that I thought would be better. It actually ended up being way worse. So I was working really, really long hours. I had a super long commute. When I got home, I felt like I didn't have a lot of margin for anything outside of like taking a shower and eating dinner and getting ready for bed. And then on the weekends, I found it really hard to disconnect. Like I felt like, oh, I should be writing a blog post right now, or responding to some Slack messages, or planning for the next week. And then on top of that, when I was at work, I felt pretty disrespected. And so at this point, my heart palpitations had gotten to be so bad that at times I'd be completely unable to speak, like unable to talk, which really freaked out a lot of people around me. So I decided I'll just stay in this job till the end of the year. And I think I only stayed for about 3 more weeks. So I began to have this kind of existential crisis. Like I really wanted to work in tech and be a developer. And sure, the pay and benefits were better, but it felt like there was this unspoken price that I had to pay with my mental and physical health. Everywhere I looked around me, the message was like, you gotta hustle, work harder, work longer, make sacrifices. I was extremely burnt out, and I didn't understand how people were really doing this for long periods of time without developing serious issues like mine. I didn't really see where I could have this like path in tech where I could be like successful and healthy. So around the same time, I met the founder of G2I, Gabe Greenberg, and after having lunch in Miami, he was talking to me about his company. He's like, oh, I want to be the first developer marketplace that prioritizes the health of developers. And I was like, do it. Do it. Like, I needed this. Some of my friends needed this. So many people needed this. And actually, a few months later, I ended up joining Gabe at G2I, and we began shaping a program that we called Developer Health. So hi, my name is Michelle Bakels. I'm Program Director for Developer Health at G2I. So we focus on initiatives that support the health of developers. Everything that we did would focus on informing and empowering developers to improve their lives and to exercise agency in a way that's specific to them. Our goal for the program was to create resources, support, and awareness around health and tech. And next slide. We drew a lot of inspiration from professional athletes. I'm a huge sports fan. Gabe is a huge sports fan. But professional athletes, they're undeniable. They're undeniably exceptional at what they do. Like, we can look at Serena Williams and know that she's operating at a level almost no one else in the world can. So what does it take to be undeniably exceptional at what you do? Consistent hard work, yes, but these professional athletes, they also have consistent rest, boundaries, schedules, recovery, planning, clarity, purpose. And this is a lot. And we actually wrote about all of this in a guide that we are releasing for free next month called the Developer Health Operating System. But today I'm going to focus in on one issue that I already mentioned. It was an issue that caused a lot of stress in my life, leading to a heart condition. It's something that we hear about a lot, but I really want to dig below the surface level conversation here and get to kind of the heart of burnout. So burnout is a state of complete mental, physical, and emotional exhaustion. A recent study found, oh, that was a nice chart, by the way. So this is a, so anyway, a recent study found that 83% of developers have experienced burnout from work. Some of the top cited reasons for this is high workload, unclear goals and targets, and inefficient processes. So the heart of burnout really comes from stress, right? Because all of these things can cause like stress that feels like impossible to manage or deal with. So digging into stress a little bit more, stress is a state of worry or mental tension that's caused by a difficult situation. It's a natural human response that prompts us to address challenges or threats in our lives. And everyone experiences stress. And a little bit of stress is a really good thing. It helps us navigate our daily lives. But too much stress can begin to cause some serious issues. So we understand stress by the way that it makes us feel. But digging in even a little deeper again on what stress is literally, stress is a release of a bunch of hormones via directive from the hypothalamus. So when your hypothalamus detects some threat, it will set off an alarm to signal the adrenal glands to release a bunch of hormones, most commonly adrenaline and cortisol. So looking at adrenaline and cortisol, adrenaline increases your heart rate, blood pressure, energy. It contracts your blood vessels to send blood to your muscles, and it inhibits your pancreas from creating insulin, which we need to live. And cortisol increases glucose in the bloodstream, slows down non-essential functions in fight or flight situations, and changes immune system responses. It also suppresses the digestive system, reproductive system, growth processes, and controls mood, motivation, and fear. So some stress is necessary. Stress is necessary, but it's meant to be temporary. Once a stress trigger passes, our hormone levels and body functions are meant to return back to normal. And where this can become an issue is then we can't find that normalcy again, and health issues can develop from there. We are not meant to feel stress for entire work days or work weeks. And for the record, if you do feel stress for weeks or months at a time, this is very relatable to me, by the way. If we're feeling stress for weeks or months at a time, this is considered chronic stress. And this is the stress that I was feeling when I developed my heart condition. So chronic stress can have some of the effects of anxiety, depression, digestive issues, heart disease, memory issues, and more. But let's take a look at stress outside of a response to external pressures. Revisiting adrenaline. An adrenaline release happens when we experience excitement or fear. So a lot of people enjoy the feeling of an adrenaline rush where they create the scenario for themselves in which they release adrenaline into the bloodstream. But even when we enjoy the feeling of an adrenaline rush, it doesn't change the fact that all of the other things that happen when our body is undergoing stress are still occurring. So like increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, etc. So again, these things are meant to be temporary, like when Cody the koala does a backflip, like that's good adrenaline rush. But when it's sustained for a long period of time, again, it can begin to cause some issues. Another important thing to note about adrenaline is it's very closely related to dopamine. So adrenaline and dopamine are both principal neurotransmitters that mediate a variety of central nervous system functions, which is one of the reasons why burnout can be so insidious, because along the way, we can be the ones that are subconsciously putting pressure on ourselves to deliver under an impossible deadline, or to release a huge feature in under a week, or be even more competitive. We begin to adrenalize our work. So we know from things like social media and alcohol and like even processed sugars that just because we enjoy something doesn't mean that it's necessarily that great for us. It's not hyperbolic to say that adrenalizing your work over time can create a chemical dependency. And this is so well observed that over 50 years ago, psychologists began to formally recognize, study, and treat workaholism or work addiction. So taking it a step further, workaholism is a physical addiction to adrenaline and stress hormones, and a process addiction to a compulsive activity. But being addicted to work sounds like a really good thing, right? Because we'll achieve more and we'll get really far in our careers. Except that is a bit of a myth, because workaholics tend to be less effective than other workers. They tend to have difficulty working as part of a team, trouble delegating work or trusting their coworkers. They tend to overcommit to work or have organizational difficulties, and they also tend to suffer from sleep deprivation, which impairs brain and cognitive function. But if everybody in tech is working like this, then I have to work like this to keep up. Again, not everybody is really working like this. What the most successful, in the book, what the most successful people do at work, it states as a general rule, the higher number of work hours reported, the more likely the person is to be overestimating. So if somebody says, oh yeah, that's not a shirt, that's okay. So if somebody says that they work like 75 hours a week all the time, then they're likely to be overestimating by about 25 hours. The majority of people who say they work a lot work about 20 to 30% less than they say they do. And that's not to accuse anybody of lying, but another characteristic, yeah, I'm not gonna be like, sorry, I don't believe you. But another characteristic of people who suffer from work addiction is that they don't have a lot of clarity around time. So they don't track their time, they don't plan for their time, they don't measure how long a task takes. So our answer to these pressures, both internally and externally, is a philosophy that we call restful work. So restful work is a work week we look forward to, filled with joy and rest at an unhurried pace. It's a place where we do our best work, yet it's just one part of our life. The days comprising of a restful work week have a clear start and end, undisturbed personal time, and consistent ample time for sleep. Restful work means we are better parents, partners, friends, and employees, and it leads to putting our health first and finding a place of deep contentment. The foundation for restful work is slowing down, because it reduces adrenaline. We learn a more sustainable way to work that actually makes us more productive and helps us be even more ambitious. So if you want to achieve more in your goal, or you have big career goals, then it may help to actually prioritize rest and sleep and taking some time off to enjoy life outside of work. Looking at PTO really quickly, 46% of workers in the United States don't take all of their PTO, but a study from Project Time Off found that only 34% of workers who used less than 10% of their, or less than 10 days of their PTO received a raise or a bonus in a 3-year period. Meanwhile, 65% of workers who used more than 10 days of PTO received a raise or a bonus. So this is nearly double the chances of getting a raise or a bonus by actually taking more time off. And this is likely because getting sufficient rest and taking time off increases mood, memory, focus, emotion regulation, productivity, happiness, and creativity. Yeah, thanks, Mark. Mark said he agreed with that. So there are other ways of slowing down besides taking time off. Some of them include prioritizing, substituting, underscheduling, and more. I'm going to touch on prioritizing today. So this is an excerpt from the book Essentialism about the word priority. The word priority came into the English language in the 1400s. It was singular and it meant the very first or prior thing, and stayed singular for the next 500 years. Only in the 1900s did we pluralize the term and start talking about priorities. Logically, we reasoned that by changing the word, we could bend reality and somehow now have multiple first things. So looking back on the beginning of this talk, we were talking about burnout. We were talking about some of the top reasons for burnout. 2 of them were high workload and unclear goals and targets. So taking from the learnings of the book Essentialism, I wanted to share a method of prioritizing your work in order to achieve your goals and to manage your workload. And this is a method of planning your work that we call an essentialism plan. And this is a focus on the work that aligns with company principles, visions, OKR, or some guiding metric of ultimate importance. And these are the tenets of building an essentialism plan. So first of all, everything here is offensive, meaning that it's work that moves the needle closer to achieving your goals, such as completing a feature, launching a campaign, or reviewing a design. This is opposed to defensive work, which is necessary but doesn't really get you closer to your goals, such as emailing, recurring meetings, or Slack messages. You should definitely respond to your emails, but it doesn't belong on the essentialism plan. A few other things. The work here encapsulates a set amount of time. We focus on planning our work for 2 weeks at a time, but you can move that shorter or longer, however works for you. This is not an ultimate to-do list. This is a list of 4 to 6 of your highest priority items as related to your goals. You want to take about 15 to 30 minutes to create this thoughtfully, and once it's finished, you want it to be visible every day when you work. Again, this is also for your hell yeses, so not a primary to-do list. Items here should address a bigger picture or scope, and you should be able to clearly see how it's going to help you achieve your goals. Last, everything here should be actionable. So every item will start with a term like launch, start, review, complete, support, draft. So this is an example of one of my old essentialism plans. I have some high-level focus areas that address some of our goals around building community and organizing React Miami and writing the developer health operating system. I have an item here for each thing that is something actionable that I want to get done in a 2-week period. And once I have this essentialism plan written out, I can create daily action plans. So this is closer to a to-do list, but still it only focuses on about 6 or so of your top priority items. I like to take that little bulleted list and put it into a daily schedule that helps me manage my time and have a lot more visibility around how I spend my time. You don't have to make it a schedule. If you just want to make it a bulleted list, that's fine too. It's whatever works for you. And I have with me today some printouts of this essentialism plan. So if you guys want a copy to kind of like mess around with it and see how your work would fall here, feel free to see me. I have some copies. If you're joining us virtually, you can go to g2i.co/Epic Web Conf and you can download a copy for yourself. I want to wrap up with a few last thoughts. First of all, the tech industry is incredible. The advancements over history are nothing short of miraculous, and especially with the advancements of the modern web, the barrier to building has never been lower. It is exhilarating to chase down an idea or to build some new solution or to just exercise your creativity. But just like the computers that we work with, we are only as good as our systems allow us to be. So whether you are leading a team or you're a solo builder or you're part of a team, we build better when we feel better, when we have clear functional processes, when we know when to execute and when to pause. When I was feeling my worst states of burnout, I thought I could convince myself that I wasn't really that stressed. Like I thought it was just like a psychological exercise I had to go through. Like, you're not really stressed, you're not really that tired. Or if you just like push through this, just push through it. And then afterwards it'll all be better. But now I have this little reminder in my chest that rest is more than a good feeling. It is necessary. It's not a luxury. It's not a reward for hard work. It's part of doing hard work. Rest helps you grow, it helps you recover, and it helps your body operate the way that it's intended to. Mental health is physical health. Everything that happens in our minds, what excites us, what scares us, what calms us, it's attached to changes in hormone levels, to blood flow, to nervous system behavior, to body functions. Nothing is ever all in your head. So, please, remember to always listen to your body before you listen to anyone or anything else. And if you put yourself first and you take care of yourself first, everything will find a way. Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing. That really resonated with me, especially about just burnout and what Michelle said about when everyone is doing it, when everyone around you is working really hard, working all the time, you start to think it's a normal. I think there's another quote, it's like, when everyone has the disease, no one thinks you're sick. And that just really resonated with me so much. I've really struggled with a lot of burnout. Let's give Michelle another hand. And I love what she said, we build better when we feel better. I love that. Okay, so let's do another giveaway. You guys ready? Okay, so we've got another little one wheel. Let's do a little trivia. This one should be an easy one. Who was the creator of the World Wide Web?
Ooh, honor system is right in this area. Which one of y'all said first? Be honest.
All right, come get it. Good job, good job. It's a lot of people. Who was it? I thought it was...
Yeah. I like the fact that they were pointing to each other like, no, you go first, you go first. Like, man, I ain't say that.
That was so
honorable.
polite. Yeah.
Yeah, too honorable. Okay,
good job,
so
everyone.
in the spirit of taking rest and doing the right thing, it's time for a break. We have a 30-minute break. Be back here in 30 minutes. That'll be 10:50. We'll see you at 10:50. Thanks so much. Please take your seats. The program will begin right now. Did y'all know that was me doing the other voiceover? No, it was. It was not. How are y'all feeling? How's the break? I know a lot of us are probably still like coming to terms with ourselves after that last talk because we were just getting read over and over about our behavior. And I heard people in the front, like, I was sitting in front with John. He was like, man, this hurts. And I was like, yeah, a lot. Because I just saw myself over and over again in every slide. Like, yeah, I overestimate. You know, I'm like, I can do this in 2 hours. And then I put in 17 hours because I said it's going to be due in 2 hours. Anybody ever done that before? You committed too short, so then you overwork so that you don't turn out to be a liar. That's the worst. Madison, have you ever done it before, worked on a project that you undercommitted to?
Absolutely. All the time.
All the time. What do you do when that happens to you?
I don't know, heart rate racing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I had to use my Apple Watch when she was giving that talk. Like, man, that feels like just too familiar. Okay, here's what I need you to do. If you're sitting in the back, definitely come up front. There are seats all over. If you're sitting on the little ledge, just come sit with your friends. Make friends.
There's lots of good seats up front that are still open.
Yeah, we're cool up here. Second thing is this. There's a slide I want to show you. It's a very important slide. All right. These fantastic sponsors provided scholarships so folks could be here to celebrate the web together. Give them a big round of applause.
Woo!
I mean, this is amazing. This is amazing. The web is for everybody. And I love that we get to do that. All right. With enough of that. Okay, so check this out. Our next speaker, super fantastic human. All right. Started out as a school teacher. Came into tech. Now is a world-renowned engineer and content creator. Y'all, people are like, oh, like, you know, you, yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All right, so do me a favor. Put your hands together for the fantastic, the amazing Mr. Simon Vrachliotis.
Nailed it, man. Thank you. Hey, thank you. Park City, what's good? I just need my slides here because I can't see them. It says the wrong thing. But I am so excited to be here. It's been quite an epic journey from Australia. Mark, this slide is for you. I didn't add it. It was there already. It's 29 hours, so I would have stayed up for a little bit in the, in the little check. It's also been an epic couple of days meeting incredible people and an incredible region. You might have seen that I have done lots of hiking. I'm super excited to be here talking about Tailwind CSS. And I've been obsessed about Tailwind, about utility-first CSS for a long time, actually longer than Tailwind even existed. And I've spent a lot of time trying to convince people this is a good approach to style applications. Today, I want to do something different. I want to take a range from design to dev and discuss how I feel that Tailwind is the ultimate tool for collaboration and productivity between designers and developers. Any designers in the house? I know there's one here at least. Yeah, a couple, that's great. So, when you talk about design and dev, there is a concept of design handover. This is when the design team or the designer creates something and then passes it over to the developer to go and implement. And this leaves that section in the middle a little bit straight line and fragile. And even with really skilled, professional, trained designers and devs, this is the part of a project where, even if they work together, this is always where there can be some hiccups that can derail the project a bit. One of the reasons for this is some things are pretty hard to hand over in design. So if you look at this card, for example, there's a clear heading, subheading, font size, font weight, but how do you hand over something like this interaction? See, this makes pretty hard to design these interactive UIs and then hand them over. Sure, designers can reach for interaction prototyping tools, and these are great, but it's a lot of work, and it's still not the thing, so the developer still has to build it. And as a developer myself, if someone gives me this and say, hey, can you dev this? It's a bit intimidating. Well, I have a little secret. These were built by a designer. And when I say designer, I mean someone who spent all day in tools like Figma, building pictures of elements with different states, and then handing it over to a developer to implement. All right, I gotta tell you a story. Stories are always good. So the Figma file you've seen just before is the work of a friend and colleague of mine, Chris Dale, who's a senior designer at ThinkMill. And in this case, he was building a website for the Seed.js meetup, JavaScript meetup in Sydney that we helped co-organize. And so he built this site in Figma and then handed it over to me. And I went ahead and built it with web technologies, yes, including Tailwind CSS. And so while I was building this, in the meantime, because turns out there's another meetup in town, React Sydney, Chris started designing another website for another meetup. So as you can imagine, there is a lot of similarities between these two websites. They're both meetup sites. And so we started thinking, all right, how can we share these components? Should we have a monorepo? And then we pulled the components for both sites. And then we were like, you know what? We don't even know if we're going to ship the two sites, if they're going to stay the same, and we might do the wrong abstraction too early. So we said, let's just duplicate the first site, the repo, and then tweak the styles. After all, Tailwind is really good at this. But that means that I need to finish the first site before I clone the repo. Otherwise, we have an unfinished double website, which is not great. And so while we have this discussion together, appears a Boris. Boris is the co-founder of ThinkMill and also the head of product design. And Boris hits me with, hey, Simon, I've been thinking a lot about Tailwind. This might be related to some brainwashing, I don't know. And he says, I think I'm ready to embark on a whole design team training. We should all be comfortable designing, thinking, and prototyping in the browser with Tailwind. My man, this is music to my ears, right? And he keeps going. The plan is not to stop using Figma, it's to move much earlier to the browser, which I completely agree with in the design dev cycle. You do some discovery, and then the source of truth is the code. And so what we need is some sort of low-risk, high-reward playground so the designers can train without too much pressure. And to Boris's point, turns out that this Sydney meetup website is the perfect opportunity to move from Figma to the code. There is no investors or even not a hard deadline. It's just a meetup site, yeah? So together, we carve some time to do some training together about Tailwind CSS. And so I show him the ropes of Tailwind Play, how to prototype, and then say, hey, if we want to change this card component from the first site to the other one, the approach is to change things on elements directly. So here we remove the rounded corners. Instead, we have a border level 4, and then next element the same. And I teach him, because you change the style on the elements directly, you're not going to break anything anywhere. It's pretty safe. Same thing here. We change the font size from 4XL to 5XL. And mind you, when we start iterating with the font size, instantly appears a autocomplete suggestions of all the design tokens, scales that are available. And this is when designers' ears start to perk up, when you start talking about scales and design tokens that are available. And I'm like, yeah, dude, this is what Tailwind is. You have a theme, and you customize it. And then if you have these highlights and accent colors, suddenly they're accessible in a lot of different things you might use these colors for. Background, border, carrots, and all that stuff. And at this point, I could see Chris getting really excited, and I thought, he's on his way, like he's getting that thing. So gave him a little bit more work to dig deeper, watch a few of my YouTube videos, and how to work with React and multi-style components, and off he went. I just went to work on something else. And a few moments later, Chris, who was going to give me pictures of buttons to implement, instead sends me a link, react.sydney. And this is the live website, and Chris completely by himself implemented the site. You can see the button interaction here. Chris was able to play with the easing curves by himself instead of giving feedback to a developer, and basically went from Figma handover to shipping to production. And that really marked the point where Chris was unleashed into front-end dev. At least at ThinkMill, in the context of ThinkMill, he, from that moment on, collaborated on production websites, client work at ThinkMill. So another fun moment that happened a few weeks, maybe a month later, Chris sends this message in Slack. Hey, just shipped the key static website redesign, I was working on something else, which was unrelated, but I see this. I usually work on key static a lot, and that's a product we built at ThinkMill. And it looks like this. And suddenly it looks like this. And I'm like, oh, nice. So I scroll down to try to work out what else is interesting. And I land on these cards that you've seen at the start. Instantly, my brain goes to, ooh, this is some Rive animation or 3DS or Canvas because it's pretty elaborate. Nope. I looked at the DevTools, and it is all Tailwind utilities. And I was pretty surprised because that didn't scream Tailwind to me at first sight. And so I go in Slack thinking this is a senior dev who jumped in and built that. I'm like, guys, who built this? This is incredible. Turns out it was Chris. What? I had just showed the ropes of Tailwind to this guy, and he was able to build that thing. And I said, dude, how did you do this? And Chris, super giddy, was like, man, Tailwind is so sick. Everything feels really simple. You just compose little things together and adjust timings, and it works. So let's try to break down one of these examples. That's the card that you're now very familiar with. Some simplified code. We have the header on top here, and then the background decoration sort of things. So there's a class of group at the top on the whole card. And in Tailwind, it lets you do things like group hover. So if we hover over the whole group, which is the whole card, we can scale this background SVG by 125%. So no matter where the mouse goes on the card, you can see the background zooming, which is a pretty cool little thing. That's the first step, right? Next thing, how do we do this thing? So again, simplified code. I have a circle. It's a 1 pixel border circle. It's supposed to be hidden, but I'm showing it so you're going to see how it works. And there's this animate ping utility. Turns out that's a default Tailwind utility to make little elements ping, like this notification badge on the docs. And I would have never thought of using this in such a creative way that Chris did. Again, on group hover, the display goes from none to flex, and so you can see the circle pinging like this, which is pretty cool. So that's 2 out of 3. The last element is these 2 icons separated by line. So we have a width of 12, and then we go on group hover to a width of 0, and the flex container will kind of shrink on itself. Now, I know animating the width property is not the most performance thing, but here this happens inside the card. There is no layout shifts happening anywhere, so this is pretty fine to me. So if you put all of this together, I like that now your brain should be able to process what to use to feel like pure magic. And now you can see the 3 layers working together. You can see the background zooming, the halo pulsing, and the little line shrinking. Right? And this goes back to this. It's all about composition and timing. Turns out this is how designers like to think. Another thing that Chris said is, I love the quick syntax. It really lets you iterate in the browser directly, which is super powerful. Yep, the quick syntax. You know what I'm talking about. The ugly HTML. The one thing the internet loves to hate about Tailwind. Turns out, I think that this is the magic ingredient of Tailwind. Why? Because I believe it's the fastest feedback loop from ID in your head to CSS in the browser. I'm not saying it's better than CSS, but it's the fastest I think of a UI and I put it in the browser. So let's do some very scientific benchmarks here. We have a designer who's going to build a button. I'm sure a real designer will cringe at my chops in Figma, but I use basically a thing called auto layout to create a box around the button. Select a background color, text color. Here's the padding, horizontal and vertical. Rounded corners, and then we change the font weight to medium, and we are done. Pretty good, nice button, well done. Thank you. So let's see how we can do the most similar process in Tailwind. And I'm sure designers will agree that it's very similar. Here I'm in Tailwind Play. I select a background color, select a text color, select a padding horizontal, vertical. And instead of using my mouse and picking values in the right sidebar, I just pick values in the code, in the text editor, with my keyboard from the autocomplete. And look at this. Whoa, that was fast. I know for a fact, maybe not in this room, but at least at home watching, there's a few of you thinking, why not just write CSS? What do you mean? I wrote this, and I wrote CSS. This is the output. It's generated real CSS. It's even using CSS variable composition for the background. Pretty cool stuff. No, but I mean normal CSS. Fine. I will do a button and add a class, and then in CSS, I will write real CSS and create the same button. And damn, actually, that was way faster. So what's the deal? The deal is we're not trying to prototype a button. Let's imagine we want to prototype this interface. I know at least one person is very familiar with this. There's a lot of things happening. You can see the frosty glass sidebar on the left with the circle behind, the little ribbon on the side, and all these things. So what you're about to see is me screen recording myself prototyping. The font is too small. I don't want you to look at the font. I want you to look at the workflow. So you can see on the left that I'm really playing with design values and discovering what I want to build. Oh, trigonometric function, did you see that? And I'm really trying out things. On the right, it's too small, but I'm never once leaving the markup. I'm just composing little tokens together. And this lets me get in that creative space where I'm not writing CSS, I'm designing. Tailwind in my head is a design tool. And at the end of the process, this is Figma on the right, the code on the left. It's not pixel perfect, but it's pretty damn close. And there is there's not the frosty glass, but there's the other elements in there. And yeah, that's what I call rapid prototyping. And I promise you, I'm very good with CSS, but I would not have been able to do this discovery work if I was writing CSS, organizing files and names and stuff. You can hear the fight or flight in my voice, can you? And if you don't believe a developer's idea of prototyping skills, take the word of the head of product design. He says the same thing. It's the closest thing to design iteration in the browser. As a bonus, when you finish prototyping, you have a production-ready website, because Tailwind invites you to work in a way that is prototyping and is also the maintainable and recommended way to build, which sounds counterproductive, but if you try it, you know it. A good friend of mine, Corey, he's another designer living in Australia as well. 4 years ago, he was working in Sketch all the time and said this: it's easier to design with than a design tool. And whoops, when you finish, you actually have a website. These days, Corey works at BuildKite as a senior design engineer. And you can see they're hiring design engineers, pretty trendy term these days. And the reason is they want everyone to collaborate in the code. And Corey said Tailwind definitely played a role in bridging this gap between designers and devs. And what happens is it makes web development more accessible to non-devs. That's what I love about Tailwind. It invites designers to write code. And as you've just seen with my prototyping, it also invites developers to design and prototype. I'm sure you heard the Remix team talking about how learning Remix tricks you into learning the web platform. And Tailwind does the same. It kind of teaches you, tricks you into learning skills outside of your wheelhouse. Now, there's a lot of tools in the spectrum from design to dev. On the design-heavy side, we have tools like Sketch or Figma, which creates representation of the real thing, make it feel real. And then you invite developers in that world to have tools to build the real thing. And on the other end, you have tools that are very developer-centric, worry about things like type safety. And if you look at the implementation, it's definitely a bit further away from how designers like to work. All these tools are really good. I'm not saying everything here is really good. Just remember, it's all about trade-offs. And I think Tailwind makes the perfect trade-off that makes it sit right in the middle. All right, fine, I'm a bit biased. It's a little bit scooted over to the dev tool. It is a dev tool, but it sits close enough to the design world that designers will take a look at it. And when they look at it, the first thing they see on the homepage hero is that rapid prototyping workflow where you just sprinkle style concerns and build your thing. And at this point, they're a warm lead, right? And then you show them the beautiful default color scales, spacing, and documentation. And at this point, it's a wrap. So to wrap things up, I do believe that Tailwind is the ultimate collaboration tools for designers and developers because it takes this area, the handover area, which is usually fragile, and it makes it the area where all the collaboration happens and people have a good time. Turns out, when you have designers and developers playing on the same field, you can achieve much more impactful results. And we're all gonna watch this a second time because it took me way too long to edit. And with that, I want to say a big thank you.
Wow. That was amazing. I had to make a confession. These are my confessions. All right. I have refused to use Tailwind. I know. Yeah. Get off the stage. Just go, man, go home.
I use Tailwind.
It is not wise to choose sides because Madison and I are a united front, so don't try to choose sides. But no, I refused to use it before.
No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
Choose me.
The betrayal. The real-time betrayal. What I was going to say is that I refused to use it because of the reasons that Simon said, but not going to lie to you, after watching this fantastic presentation, I am like, okay, I'm just going to try it. I'm just going to try it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Just watching that made me want to go code. Just how fast you can work in Tailwind and bills got me inspired.
I'm also inspired by the fact that he built that calendar thing himself. I thought that was like a plugin from like some third-party service. That's amazing that you built that. Wow, way to go.
I'm inspired by the basketball video with the dev. Like, how does someone do that? I don't know how to do that.
Madison wants to dunk now. She's going to go outside and be dev. All right, we got something for you. Yeah, that's the energy I'm always looking for. I feel like you want to win this. All right, we got another one of these really rad one wheels. Here's the question. Honor system, because we don't have buzzers. How many hours did Simon say he traveled?
Oh, man.
The answer is 25. What is it? I wrote 25. Oh, okay, yeah, so 30. 29. So somebody there said it first. Okay, come on up. You got it. I
Good
believe
job.
in you.
Let's give him a hand.
I
Let's give him a hand.
25.
Woo!
I can't believe I wrote down 25. And I was so confident. Like, yeah, the answer is 25. He's like, no.
I wrote down 24. I got it wrong, too.
All right. Congratulations. Okay. That's the way we roll. Fantastic. Congratulations. Are you folks having a good time? Are you feeling smarter yet? I told you in the beginning. We said it. We said there were some brilliant folks giving sessions. So this conference is not letting me down at all. Even as a I haven't even seen any like major React stuff. You see, it's a web conference. So I'm like, even as an Angular engineer, I'm still like, wow, look at all the things that we could learn if we just all like be open and learn from each other. It's really amazing.
Yeah, it's so true. It feels like just what Kent said, room for everyone. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, our next speaker is a front-end engineer who turns ideas into accessible experiences. She also just flew in from Portugal. That's a 9-hour time difference. Amazing. But I was talking to her last night, and she wasn't jet-lagged at all. So that's like a superpower. I have a 1-hour time difference, and I'm feeling jet-lagged. Please welcome Sandrina to the stage. Woo!
Slides? No? I don't have slides. Why not? What am I missing? What's a... Ui. It's missing this one. What about now?
Is this on?
All right, while we're sorting that out.
Okay.
You got it? Okay, we'll do one more giveaway.
One more giveaway.
Oh, see?
What was my first programming language? One man said Qdoba. It was not Qdoba.
What is Qdoba? What? Is that real? Oh,
Cubase man in the back out there. Come on to win this one.
good job. Let's give him a hand.
You can thank me later. Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Sandrina, and today I'm here to tell you about how to make your interactions. What's happening? Not accessible. I don't know. It's connected, it was working.
It'll come back.
I don't know.
Thanks for coming.
Do I need to, I don't know, bad connection? I mean, it's connected here. Let me try the other port. Give another giveaway, gift, whatever. Okay, but I need full screen.
Oh, come back.
No, you just click. Just click. Yeah, there you go. Oh, man. Yesterday it was working. I didn't do anything. It worked on my machine yesterday. Maybe, no, I don't know. Please don't ask me to do this talk without slides. Cannot. Yesterday I tried here. Maybe if you try this instead. Here, I also have.
I got another giveaway.
Thank you.
Does anybody like sweet treats?
Another giveaway. Let's do it.
We got some salted caramel.
Those are mine. No.
And I can hear y'all judge me talking about caramel, caramel. No, I say caramel. All right, I got these ready for the streets. Where did our speaker fly in from? Ooh,
whoa,
lightning
who is it?
round.
Is it you?
All right, give him a round of applause.
Okay, I
Good
think
job,
it is.
Taryn.
Okay. Okay, I feel like I need to skip the intro because we already lost a lot of time. So, accessible interactions. For the next 20 minutes, I'm not going to talk about technical specifications, but I'm going to show you how you can use dev tools to help you, or not. But most importantly, I want you to learn through interactions and empathy. So let's start. Let's start with the elephant in the room, this page here. This is the web content accessibility guidelines. And this is where all the technical specifications are. And I told you I wouldn't talk about it, and I will not. But I want to talk about this. Can you see it? Look how tiny and innocent the scroll bar is. The moment you land in this page, you know that you are about to start a rabbit hole, right? In fact, I think that this page is so big that I believe it's even bigger than on modules. No, don't take a picture just yet. This is on page at scale. Come on. Okay, jokes aside, let's all acknowledge the deep, massive work behind UCOG. It's thanks to this page that people with disabilities can enjoy the web. So please clap to that as well, okay? Still, it's a mess. We feel lost, so we kind of need a map. So that's what I'm going to try to explain you. UCOG in a map very quickly. So UCOG is split in 4 groups, what they call the 4 principles. And each one of the principles can be a question that you ask yourself. So the first one, how do users perceive your content? Then, how do users navigate your content? And how do users understand your content? And last but not least, it's not about people, but about the machines. How the machines understand the semantics of your code. And that's it. Then each one of the groups has a bunch of guidelines and criteria. And I like to see UCOG as a Pokemon game. You need to catch them all. That's it. And as in Pokemon, some are easier to catch than others. So you start with level A, the small Pokemons, the ones that you really need to catch. Then you evolve to AA, which is the standard recommendation. And then if you really want to be the best one, AAA. So that's it. That's the simplest way I have for you to explain or to understand UCAG. Now, there's a bunch of tools out there to help you catch all these guidelines. And before I talk about it, I want to run a little test with you. Ready? Okay. Which one is easier for you to read? White one or black one? Oh, wow. A lot of people say black. Come on, we are on stage. How can you read the black one? Okay. I prefer the white one. Anyway, guess what? If you run an evaluation tool here to check the color contrast, the white one fails. But the black one passes. So what's happening here? So this is an edge case, okay? So actually there is a new color algorithm being developed where both cases would fail because both cases are not considered accessible. But either way, the point here is that yes, you have evaluation tools to help you, but most of the times they will not work. And for me to really explain when they work or not, I need to talk about the spectrum. There is this spectrum from static, simple websites to fully interactive websites. And the more dynamic or the more interactive your website is, the less the evaluation tools will work. Either way, I still recommend you, if you can, install Axcore. You can integrate with Storybook, React, so on. And if you wonder where to start with accessibility, start here. It's interactive. You read the output. It's simple. It explains whatever you need to do, why it's important. It works. But as you can see, it's not enough. So next, you need automated tools to test your own, custom attributes, custom keyboard navigation, so on, so on. And with Playwright or Testing Library, both work fine. But the thing is, accessibility is about people, and you cannot automate people as you automate code. So you really need manual testing. And you can start with yourself. Use only the keyboard to navigate the page. But even better than that, try to watch videos on how people with disabilities use the internet. That's way more effective than you trying to guess how the tools work. And I know it's hard, I'm not gonna lie, accessibility can be hard, but how can I say this? The more you practice, the more insights you have, the easier it becomes, It almost comes as a second nature. And at the end of the day, remember, accessibility is not about you, it's about everyone else. It's our duty, as web creators to make sure that everyone can enjoy the epic web, right? So, all of that done, let's move on for the example. So now I have 5 examples where you can make your interactions more accessible. And for it, keep this in mind. Every click is an interaction, but not every interaction will be a click. Okay, so let's start with not the elephant in the room, but the jungle. Custom components. All of you have tried to, build a date picker, dialogue, tooltip, you name it. And I've done it too, and actually I have a story here. So a few years ago, I built a dialogue from scratch, and I was like, yeah, this is accessible, I'm confident. But at the same time, I went looking for packages. I found a few, and I asked the author, look, what's the difference between yours and everything else? And the answer that I got was, I don't know how to describe this. Where is the scroll bar? I'm lost again. Either way, the point here is that, yes, build stuff from scratch. That's the best way to learn. But when it comes to production, probably you'll miss something critical. So if you can, go use Radix or React Aria. Both are library components done with accessibility in mind, and they are headless, which means you have full control over the styling part. So please try it. Now, the internet, it's not just about web component or custom components. We have tons of other stuff to take care of by ourselves. So let's talk a little bit about keyboard. The basics of the keyboard is that every element needs to be interactive or needs to be accessible by keyboard. But sometimes the experience is, let me show you an example. So here we have a page where I can see everyone who is on holiday. And let's imagine I want to check the national holidays there on the right side. So I need to use the keyboard for this. Let's imagine that I can only use the keyboard for this. So I need to tab. Oops. Let's tab. Tab again, and again, and again. Ooh, everything is so accessible. Ooh, are you feeling the pain how much I need to tab? There you go. I mean, it's accessible, but it could be better. So what if, let's start from the beginning. I tab. Oops, ooh, a new button. Skip timeline. Yes, let's skip it. There you go. One more, and voila. So there were other solutions to make this more accessible, but this one is quite a quick win that I can explain to you in under 20 minutes. So for this one, it's the concept called skip links, also or very popular with the skip navigation, but you can also use it to skip parts of your website that are fully or very interactive. And the idea here is you have a link that points to the anchor tag, to the element that you want to jump to, and that's it. You don't need anything else. Like, yes, you could do a button with JavaScript to focus the other part manually, but you know, it's easy, no JavaScript here. And the really tricky part here, not the trick, but the secret for this is the visual part, because you need to hide the button, but then show it. And you can do that only with CSS, using a pseudo selector called not focus, or two selectors. But the actual CSS to hide it, let me tell you, it's the biggest CSS hack out there. Probably you know it as visually hidden or SR only, and it looks like this, and I'm gonna skip that explanation, but this is it. If you are into Tailwind, it's also available there, like SR only, and SR only, and then focus, not SR only. Could be better, but let's skip that as well. Now, let's talk about keyboards and screen readers. There are a lot of misconceptions, but there is one I want to clarify. The people who use a screen reader do not navigate the page like tab, 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 tab. It doesn't make sense. You don't understand the page with links or buttons. But they also don't go one element by the time. It's like, it's boring, takes too long. So instead, the most common way to navigate the web is through headings. You know, you just need to add the headings. Then with a screen reader, it allows you to list the headings. You can quickly read the headings and jump directly to the part that you want. And voila, almost like a skip link, but native. And guess what? You just need to use headings. And it seems like headings are also a way of interactive or a way of interaction, which is cool. Now, another misconception is not every person who uses a screen reader sees like this. Sometimes they see like this, or like this, or like this. So whatever you have in mind for accessibility, take this into account. Okay? Now, talking a little bit more about screen readers. Here we have a toggle button. You can clearly tell if it's active or not. The thing is, one tip that helps me with accessibility is to imagine the page without styles. So without styles, you have no idea if the button is pressed or not. So this is a case where, although the HTML is okay, it's not enough. It's missing the semantics. So one way to solve it is to use ARIA. In this case, and it's not working, you would use ARIA pressed with the value true or false, and then the screen reader will tell you that this is not a button, but a toggle button if it's pressed or not. So this is a case where you actually need JavaScript to make your interactions more accessible. And the cool part, or one thing that I really like about ARIA attributes, is that you can use them to style. So if for some reason you forget the ARIA, then the visuals also look broken. Now, most of you probably knew about this, but the thing is, not every toggle button behaves the same. So let me show you another example, or let me announce another example. The screen reader tells you, enable sounds, toggle button, not pressed. So far, so good. This is the code. You press the button, and then it will tell you, mute sounds, toggle button, pressed. And this is the code. So you change the ARIA pressed value and the label. But wait a second. If it says mute sound already pressed, doesn't that mean that the sound is already muted, which is the same as enable sound? I can see your face of confusion. My head hurts. This is confusing by nature. You know, I'm going to be honest. I was showing this talk with a few friends, and most of them told me, you need to remove this. This is confusing. I'm like, no, that's the point. It's confusing. You are creating confusing experiences without even realizing it. Remember, the first rule of ARIA is do not use ARIA unless you know what you're doing. And I've seen this quite a lot. So the bottom line here is you either use the ARIA pressed or you change the label, but you do not do both at the same time. They don't make sense. Okay? Now, another example, a little bit more easier. Here, we have a navigation menu, and visually, again, you can tell where you are. If you remove the styles, you're lost. For this part here, this is a little bit easier. You can use ARIA current. And current accepts a few values. One of them is the page. So the screen reader will tell you, this is the current page where you are. Cool fact, if you use Remix or React Router, the navlink component does this for you out of the box. So that's cool. To clarify, the ARIA current is not just about page, it's about any component where your current location is important in the page, such as paginations, breadcrumbs, steppers, so on. Now, I have one last example for you, and it's my favorite. So I like animations. Actually, I love animations. The thing about animations is most of the most animated websites out there are the ones with the biggest accessibility issues because you have a crazy DOM behind the scenes and maybe it will mess up. So let me show you here an example. With the keyboard, I can, tab, open, navigate, tab, open, navigate. I need to drop this. All good, right? The thing is, if I close the menu and now I hit tab, you'd expect to go to made without coffee, and yes, without coffee. And the thing is, pay attention. I'm going to press tab, and I'm lost. Press tab again. Nothing, nothing. One more. There you go. So what happened here? There is one last dev tool I want to show you that helps me to explain this. Here. It's this Chrome extension called Accessibility Insights for Web. It has a bunch of tools, and one of them is the tab stops. So it shows you the trace of your tabs while you were navigating. So basically what was happening is that it was focusing the elements in the link in the menu while the menu was closed. So we have a problem here because we have our navigation, our button, and then our fancy navigation. The thing is, how do you hide this for keyboards and screen readers and everything else? Well, ideally, you should remove it from the DOM, or you could also use CSS display none. But then it kind of messes up with all your fancy, animations, and you need some workarounds. What if you could just use one attribute called inert? When you use inert, whatever is inside that part of the DOM is totally ignored. So now, if I use the keyboard and I press tab, it jumps directly to the next one. Shift tab, and there you go. Now, to make it clear, this inert is not just about keyboards and screen readers. If, for example, I use it on the button, now the click does not work, not even the hover. See it? If you are wondering what's the difference between inert and ARIA hidden, remember, ARIA hidden does not work well with interactive elements like buttons, links, inputs, and so on. Now, what I want to show you here is that I think that this inert attribute can solve a lot of problems when it comes to interactions, animations, like if you think about skeletons and stuff like that. It's just one attribute. And another thing I want to tell is that, I love animations. I love CSS. Yes, I love CSS. But I also love accessibility. And accessibility does not need to make your website boring. Accessibility is about making your website flexible, about opening the doors to many preferences by your users, for example. And you can still have fun with it. Like here, if I open the menu and I reduce the motion, look how the animation stops at the moment of the motion. Like, I had fun here. Like, accessibility can also be fun. So it's possible. Both can coexist, accessibility and animations. Now, to finish the talk, if you think that making the web is overwhelming, what about video games? That's the last thing I want to show you. Who knows The Last of Us? Yes. The game, not the series, the game. The game, okay, quite a few. to explain, for those who don't know, this is an action game where you need to run, shoot, well, survive. And this game, one of my favorites, is one of the most accessible video games out there. Let me show you. It has a bunch of color contrast modes and magnifications, like what? Then they have this concept called directional subtitles, where it has an arrow pointing to where the voice is coming from. This is what makes possible for deaf people to realize the surroundings while they play the game. Then you can remap all the controls, and this makes possible to people with just one hand to play the game. And last but not least, it has a huge list of audio and vibration cues that that helps you understand whatever is going on the game. And this right here is what makes it possible for blind people to play the game. Like, what? Unbelievable. I think there's a lot we can learn from the video game industry. Like, if they can make a video game accessible, we can make the web accessible too, right? Well, that's it. That's all I have for you today. Remember, every click is an interaction, but not every interaction will be a click. Thank you.
Thank you. That was awesome. I learned so much in that talk. It was jam-packed.
Thank you.
Okay.
It was jam-packed. Let me ask you all a question about your accessibility habits. How many of you folks actually lead your engineering practices with accessibility first? Now, how many of us should do it? All of us. Okay,
Yeah.
This is a really hard lesson to learn, and the thing that changed my mind about accessibility was I saw a demo of a blind user navigating a mobile app and how bad and how poor the experience was. Because it's so easy for us to assume, just like Sandrina said, like everyone browses the web or interacts with the tools the way that we do as fully sighted or fully able, full hearing. And that is not the way. There are 2 billion disabled users out there, 2 billion. There's a huge market. And so for me, that was a wake-up moment of like, if I'm not designing for accessibility first, then I am excluding intentionally 2 billion people. That doesn't make a lot of business sense either. Right? Like if you think from a business use case, can you go to your jobs and say, you know what, we're going to make something and we're going to make 2 billion people not be able to use it. Like you'd never get away with that, right? Like that would be like outlandish. But unintentionally, that's what we're doing when we don't make accessible websites. I'm not trying to make you feel bad about yourselves, but I do want to encourage you to take this time to just like make a change, right? Like I did not start with accessibility first engineering. That was not how I started. But then I did better. I learned and I did better. So maybe this is that moment for you that you're learning today and you're going to do better.
Yeah, and I also loved in Sandrina's talk how she showed the different views that could be seen. I hadn't really seen that before.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm in the mood to give away something.
Oh.
I'm going to give away a card. Now that you said, okay, fine, we were going to do this later. We talked about it. If you just look under your seats right now, no, actually, Madison, hold down the fort. We're going to give them something.
All right. What are we going to give you guys? Any guesses? Cybertruck. Crocs? Oh, okay. Are you a fan of Crocs, would you say? No comment. Crocs are very comfortable for sure. How do we all feel about Crocs? Like, yay or nay?
Not outside.
Wow, mixed reviews, I have
Not
to say.
outside. Inside, you can wear them. Do not take those
Everyone
things
always,
outside.
okay, my dad got Crocs. He was like, I'm never going to wear them outside, though, just indoors. Everyone says that, then they wear them everywhere. Like, every day of his life, he's all around.
I'm going to talk to your dad.
I saw someone at a wedding wearing Crocs. I went to a wedding, and someone was wearing Crocs at the wedding. They were not white. They were just pink. I was like, that's so wrong.
All right, I'm going to need Sandrina's help here, but we're going to give away this rad bag.
Woo! It's a fanny pack.
What is
it a
the
bag?
acceptable criteria for contrast for color that she said on the screen? What's that number? But what's the number for the color contrast?
Whoa.
What's the number?
Oh, man.
Should
we do a different question?
Okay, we'll give it to him. Come and get this rad bag.
Get it. All right, give him a hand.
This bag is
love
super rad, by the way. It is like super duper
Is
cool.
this a bag or a fanny pack? I'm wondering. I thought it was a fanny pack. Do I have the word wrong?
It depends on who you want to be today. All right, good job.
I will
Enjoy
call it a
that.
bag then. No offense to fanny packs.
No, enjoy that. All right, our next session, pretty fantastic. Again, one of those moments where I was arguing, like, please let me introduce them, just because another one of my colleagues that I get to work with, somebody who is a straight up wizard. One time I DM'd him, was like, hey, how do you make this gradient? And then like 30 seconds later, he gave me back all this CSS, and it was spot on, and it was so good. And this person's a fantastic engineer, just completely brilliant, and I think you're going to really enjoy this next talk. Please welcome the fantastic, the amazing, the outstanding Mr. Adam Argyle.
Fist bump, I'm down. I think the number was 4.5 for AA, 7.0 for AAA, but that's cool. I was speaker, they gave me a sling. The slings are super rad. All right, I'm giving the first lightning talk of the day. This is going to be a 5-minute whirl wham bam tour into what you can put inside of a bottle. I'm calling a bottle a variable, right? It's a container, it's a satchel. Anyway, expands and contracts for what's inside. But it's called lightning in a bottle because we are going to be talking about, allow accessory to connect. Yeah, I would like that. Don't trust it. I should have hit no. Was there so the HDMI was more reliable here? My computer has both. Okay, come on, victory. Victory with the HDMI. Hey! Lightning in a bottle. I even used AI to make a bottle, and then I made a gradient vignette on there. Anyway, okay, so lightning in a bottle, and I'm going to leave the URL visible so that you can see that they're full page navigations, which is kind of cool, even though they morph. If you read Kent's article, he was talking about view transitions in the beginning of it, something the MPA couldn't do, but the PESPA could. Okay, whatever. The goal of today is to show you what you can do with custom properties, specifically how to guard CSS systems with type-safe property variables. Did you know CSS is typed and that you can write your own types? And you can make your system's types. You're going to love this then. So, okay, just a quick review. Oftentimes you use props like a global state store, right? You've got a root, which is pretty much the highest level place you can put a prop, then you use it somewhere else. Very easy and simple to understand. And what's cool about them is they can hold like anything. Look, you can delete all this, put some SQL injection in there. You can put all your padding values. You can hold booleans, math, gradients, icons. It's all there for you. You could put entire scripts in there. People have put this amazing things people have put into queries. But the type is unknown. It's such a loose typed variable that it doesn't know what it is. It anticipates not knowing. It anticipates you being able to put whatever you want inside of it. And that kind of becomes a problem that we're going to find out here in a second. Let's do the next level. So instead of just a global state store, we're going to make derived or computed props, right? So we've got a prop with a prop. So we've got brand, and now we're making a brand color. We're going to modify it so it's a little bit lighter by using color mix, specifying our brand, and passing white. It's a function that takes a parameter. Kind of a cool way to think about it, or a derived state store. So then we want to go crazy. We want to build a system out of this. We want one color that can change our entire theme, right? That's really rad. So we've got a brand highlight, slightly lighter, a brand shadow, slightly darker, mixing with black. Then we make a gradient using those props. We have props and props and props, and it's a really great reactive system. It's nearly a reactive system as much as you think it is, like RxJS or values in Svelte that just sort of magically update. It's very, very similar. But we wanted to add a dark mode. So here at the bottom, we say prefers color scheme, root, and oh no, I made the color light stink. That's not a real color. CSS even knows. It goes light stink, that's nothing. And then my whole system breaks because all my functions that depended on that previous value are now all wrong. They're all trying to mix light stink with black and white. That's gross. Anyway, that's the problem that you'll run into. Someone can accidentally, this is why we like TypeScript, someone can accidentally break an entire system with a typo or a bad value. So let's fix it. This is the hero slide of the day. If you take one thing away from this quick lightning talk, it is enter @property. Turn brand into a typed color variable through some simple syntax. You say, I want to make a new typed custom property called brand. Here's the syntax. It's a color type, and you can choose inherits or not. Other articles being written on that, and an initial value, meaning that it's guaranteed valid. Even if you try to force a bad value into that brand custom property, it doesn't care. It has a valid value to always fall back to. It's resilient and strong and typed. So altogether, our new updated version is we have our root and star. So notice the selector was changed from root to root star, and that's so that these things will continually recompute their value at any level in your nested DOM. And then we use CSS nesting in there to just tweak that in a dark theme. And well, what's nice though is in the dark theme, our dark theme's not broken anymore. Our light theme persists because the typed custom property won't even allow itself to get into a broken state. So the type guarded brand variable prevents that system doing it. There's even a CodePen link in the bottom here, and we can go check it out. You can go pass bad values, good values to brand and watch the theme of the button change that I put in there. Here's all the different CSS types we have. We have length, which is like pixels. You have numbers. We have percentages. We have length percentage, which means it can be a length or a percentage, right? So it's a dynamic type made up of other types. We have color type. The color type is made up of multiple types as well. If you go look at the CSS specs, it's spec'd from day one, top to bottom. It's a very typed system. It's very cool. Anyway, you have images, URLs, integers, angles. My favorite angle is the rad. You know, you can have a 2 rad. How many turns are you going to give it? 2 rad. Anyway, whatever. You get time, resolution. Time is like, how long is the duration of your animation? You know, 1 second, 5 seconds, 300 milliseconds. You got resolution, transform list, and transform functions, and you can even make custom types. When you define that app property, you can say it can be any of these types, and then include even a custom type, which is keywords that you define, meaning that the design system has keywords that are meaningful to you and that you trickle through the entire system. It's super rad. You're asking yourself, but can I use it? Oh, yeah, it's in Chrome and Safari, has been. Firefox has been working on it for a long time, and they just finished the animatable part of app property. So there's a whole bunch of other reasons to use app property other than type guarding your systems, but it's coming in June. And you could also progressively enhance to it. If you use Tailwind 4, that's behind the scenes, you don't even know it, but they've type guarded their own Tailwind system in Tailwind 4 with app property under the hood. So you're gonna start seeing it out in the wild. So as just a little hook as we watch that animation again, because it's fun. One more time? No, okay, yep. These are all the other things you can do with CSS custom properties. Come see me after the show. If you think custom props can do more or you want them to do more, we're working on, there's a spec for typed mixins. There's a spec for typed CSS custom functions. And the syntax is really cool. Like your parameters in the function are the types that you expect, and then you get, it's just like in TypeScript. It looks a lot like TypeScript. You can make games with custom properties. You can do triggers. You can do new animation capabilities with that property, because since you typed the property, it's no longer unknown, and it knows how to interpolate from a percentage. If you say the percentage is 0 to, otherwise it just thought the percentage was just like a string that you could change at any point, but when you type it, it knows for certain that it can go from 0 to some other value of that custom property, and over time. You can teach it to interpolate things that it couldn't before. You can make switches. There's all the math functions you could want. We saw scroll-driven animation functions. There's so many functions in CSS, and there's so much more. So if that stuff sounded interesting, if you're interested in type safety, your custom property or your design systems, and you want to know more about this stuff, come see me, and there's the slide link down there at the bottom. Lightning in a bottle.
Adam, I said this is a lightning talk, not talk as fast as lightning. Godly. Man, that was amazing. There's a lot of amazing content. I told y'all he was a wizard. Again, hopefully I've rebuilt trust with you after my Tailwind fiasco.
After the what? Oh, your Tailwind fiasco. Right, okay. You're going to give it a second try now, though.
Yeah, well, we'll see how they go. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, so let's see. Our next speaker makes websites with React, TypeScript, and Remix. He also makes Thorium. Has anyone ever played this? Thorium. Yeah, woo! Okay, so it is a multiplayer starship simulator game. Say that 4 times fast. I love this. Definitely check it out. Kind of makes me think of Star Trek. Is anyone a Star Trek fan in here? Well, I used to be a huge Trekkie. I've been to 4 Star Trek conferences, so I was just looking at this game. Definitely check it out after. Sounds amazing. Please welcome Alex Anderson to the stage. Where is he? This way.
So while I get set up, you'll indulge me with a little story. Thorium actually came about because I worked at some Starship bridge simulators that are here in Utah. I made the software for them. That's my break into tech. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Oh, hang on a sec. And that's what it's built for. So if you want to go do one of these Starship bridge simulations, talk to me. I can tell you where to go. But for now, we are going to talk about recipes, the recipe for local first. I like to cook, but I don't love meal planning. I needed an easy way to get all of my recipes in one place, make my meal plans from them, take the ingredients from those meal plans and turn them into a grocery list so that I could take them to the grocery store and get my stuff. And like a normal person would go and buy an app that already does this, I am not a normal person. So I used Remix and built it myself. Gave it progressive enhancement. It was great. Yeah, super fun. The only problem is one day I was shopping for groceries, as one does. I had just grabbed some cilantro off of the shelf and tapped the button to mark it off of my grocery list when I was greeted by a connection error because I had lost my cell service inside of the grocery store. And what's worse, I couldn't go back to the grocery list page because I didn't have proper caching in place. Yeah, so this is one of those situations like from Kent's talk where it's not a very good app, but I love it. But in this case, I literally had to abandon my shopping cart, my real shopping cart, not a virtual shopping cart, go out of the store to get signal again, reload the page, and then go back in so that I could go grocery shopping without pushing any buttons. And as I tried to figure this out, how to fix this problem, I stumbled across local first architecture. So what is it? We've got to start with computers, in this case servers. You've got your compute, you've got your database. In the beginning, they were right next to each other and they served requests from one place in the world. And then we thought, well, what if we were to put these servers closer to users? Ooh, that makes it so that the requests go faster. Hooray! The only problem is they're still having to communicate with a central database. So let's split our database up, have a nice little distributed system, and yeah, this has been continuing to evolve. We now have edge databases that put the data literally as close to users as possible without actually being on their device. The only problem is, if the data is not on their device, you still have this problem if they go offline. How many of us have ever lost internet on a subway or a mountain or a cruise or an airplane or this room? Yeah, it happens, and it's kind of a bummer. No, for this to work, we have to move all of the compute and all of the data directly to the device.